There are roughly 3 New Yorks. There is the first, the New York of the man or woman who was born here, who takes the city for granted and accepts its size and its turbulence as natural and inevitable. Second, there is the New York of the commuter, the city that is devoured by locusts each day and spat out each night. Third, there is the New York of the person who was born somewhere else and came to New York in quest of something. Commuters give the city its title, restlessness. Natives give it its solidity and continuity. But settlers give it passion. On April 9th, 2004, I boarded a plane in my hometown of Kansas City, Missouri. I had decided that I was going to move cross country in pursuit of a dream, in pursuit of myself. And so on today, which is the 20th anniversary of my moving to the Big Apple, I reflect on all of the lessons I've learned of being a member of the 3rd New York. So beyond the mean mugging and the death stares and the direct tones, the world and the country would have you believe that New Yorkers are rude and just mean and ill-mannered. No different than the rest of the country. But I would argue, and a lot of people would argue and have argued, that there's a difference between how New York deals with people and how the rest of the world deals with people. New York, for instance, is more kind than they are nice. So for instance, a woman on a subway coughing her brains out, annoying everybody on the subway car, and the woman next to her just goes, "Enough!" and then hands her a tissue. Not necessarily nice, but extremely kind. My friend who asked me to cat sit for him, and he knows that I don't really do that, but he had gone through everybody else. And so he came to me and asked me to cat sit for him. And I said, well, I don't want to do it, but you seem like you really need the help and I don't want your cat to die, so I'll do it. Not necessarily a nice response, but a kind response. Me visiting the Duane Reade, which is like our Walgreens here, on the corner of 42nd and 8th, and noticing very quickly on the corner exit that a man was pleasuring himself. As a woman was starting to exit, I leaned over to her and said, "Excuse me, ma'am, you might not want to go out that door. There's a man jacking off. You might want to use the other door." And her being like, "Thank you." Might not be necessarily nice, but was very kind. Between 9/11 and the blackout that happened the year after 9/11, and our response to COVID when it first landed in America, New Yorkers have mastered the art of pitching in and helping out and being kind, though not necessarily nice. I had been living in New York City for a few years at this point, and my mother came to pick me up in Kansas City at the airport and was driving me about 35 minutes from the airport to her home. And as we were driving, the sun was setting, and I just kept looking out of the window and kept going, "Look at the sky. Look at the sky." And she was like, "What are you talking about? Like, shut up. Shut up talking about the sky. Why are you so enthralled with the sky right now?" And it was because I realized in that moment, in New York City, there's always a building in front of you. Very rarely is there like open sky in front of you. And I just kind of made me a little bit sad, but it reminded me that as you go through your life, look up, especially if you're in New York City. Look up at the skies. There's so much that you're missing. Look at the stars. We don't get to see the stars because there's so much light pollution here. But when you're able to have those moments where you can like be reminded that you are a piece of a bigger puzzle. I mean, New York has a beautiful skyline. But one of the things that we lack in Manhattan is the sky. You can see it if you go across into Jersey or into Queens. You can see just how beautiful the city is. But when you're actually in it, you sometimes forget to appreciate it. In those rare moments, even 20 years later, I'm in awe of the place that I call home. Can I just say that attitude is everything? It really is, especially if you live in New York. It takes a lot of energy to live here. And I remember one day waking up, and I had woke up on the wrong side of the bed. I don't know what was wrong with me. There was like nothing wrong with me. I just was in a mood, and I don't know why. And I remember taking the subway down, and I was grumpy. And I remember getting to work, and I was grumpy. And I remember walking from my desk to the water cooler to get some water. And as I was bending over to get some water, I was grumpy. And I saw, like, I was able to leave my body and see like how stupid I looked, and like for no reason. I was just like grumpy for no reason. I don't know what it was, but I did. I was able to pull outside of myself and be like, you look fucking crazy right now. And so I realized, like I said, New York is a lot of work, can be a lot of a place where it's hard, can be a lot of work to live in. Is that what I'm trying to say? And I also didn't need to expel the energy of being grumpy, because that's also takes a lot of like energy to like sit in that space. Days can be hard for any myriad of reasons, or for no reason at all. But it's a choice. How you respond to that energy, how you respond to other people's energy, how you respond to your energy, your resilience, your perseverance. It can make a world, and does make a world of difference in your day-to-day life, especially if you live here in New York City. I'm going to say this with probably a little bit too much confidence, but I feel like New York City is still one of the last remaining like cities in America in which true like old school community exists. And the thing that I think that fuels that is that we have so many mom and pop run businesses that are still thriving in each neighborhood, on every block. I mean, each block is basically its own small town. Like I think about the time that I went to this bodega in my neighborhood. That's like a couple of blocks down. And for some reason, like once he totaled everything up, I didn't have enough money. I was short of the cash that I needed to pay him for the rest of my order. And so I said to him, I said, oh, sorry, I don't have enough cash. Let's just put back the Doritos, or whatever I was buying was probably Doritos. So let's put back the Doritos. And he was like, no, that's okay. You don't have the cash? It's okay. Like, just pay me next time I see you. And it just blew my mind, because it made me feel great, because it was like, oh, he trusts me. He knows who I am now. And that he trusts that I'm going to take care of him just like he took care of me the next time that I see him. It also makes me think about the diner, Vicky's Diner, that used to exist not too far from me. And I used to go there, and when I would walk in, the guy working behind the counter would go, turkey club on whole wheat, mayonnaise on the side. And he knew my order anytime I walked in. There were a few times though, however, I would walk in and I would like change my order because I was in the mood for something different. One time I walked in and I was like, I think I'm gonna have a burger. And he went, oh, okay. So damn hurt. And I felt so bad that like he was so proud that he knew who I was and he knew my order, and I switched it up on him and I broke his fucking heart. But it's one of those things where you forge these relationships with all of these different types of people, your pharmacist and your barista, like I said, and like all of these different people. And it really is, like, as much as the politicians would have you believe that New York City is this cesspool of corporate greed, the lifeblood of the city is basically Main Street USA. So this also goes along with the conversation of like small town mentality that people are surprised to hear about New York City. Case in point, you always run into somebody that you know, whether it be on the subway, whether it be at a restaurant, whether it be at a bar, whether it be, just walking through a Target. You run into people that you know all the damn time. Case in point, I had been working here for, I had been living here for about 4 or 5 years at this point. And I'm working at Pfizer. And Pfizer, for those of you who know, obviously is a huge pharmaceutical company, but in Midtown Manhattan, where it's based, there were like 4 or 5 buildings that Pfizer uses. I worked in the main building, which was like 30 some odd floors tall. And one day I'm like, my office was like on like, let's say floor 8, and I had to go down to like floor 3, and I'm walking down the 3rd floor, and I get to this one office, and I look and see that I recognize the name. And it's somebody that I went to elementary school with, that I went to junior high with, and part of high school with, and it just blew my mind because I didn't think I knew that he worked for the company. But later that day, I came back down and went down to his office to just double check to see if it was him, because he wasn't there when I stopped by initially. And it was. And we were reconnected after all of these years. Additionally, I ended up working with like 4 people from my college at that same job. It's just crazy. And when I talk to people who have moved away from New York, one of the things they say they miss most is the spontaneity of being able to run into someone on the subway, or to run into someone at a restaurant or a bar and be like, oh, I was on my way home, but do you want to stop and get another drink? Or, oh, I was on my way to the park, you want to join me? It happens nonstop. And really, in the midst of this big city that is, by scale, enormous and can be extremely overwhelming, it's comforting to know that lots of times you're just not too far from a friend. When I first decided to move to New York City, and then subsequently after that, since I moved to New York City, people would their first responses, like clockwork, would always be something to the effect of like, isn't New York City expensive? It must be so expensive to live there. I could never live in New York City. It's so expensive. It's expensive, right? It's expensive. And I kid you not, like that's literally like the programmed first response of 95% of the people that I meet. And it's true. It is. New York City is traditionally and historically has been more expensive to live than maybe, Des Moines, right? And so, I don't know, it's been interesting because there were so many people that I've come across that also are like one of the people, I've heard multiple people say this, I could never live in New York City because it's so expensive. And I don't know, my first thought always was like, if it was so hard, right? Then like almost 9 million people wouldn't be living there and thriving there and have been doing that for generations. It's doable. But how much more honest and vulnerable would it be, and less diminishing, to just say, it's not the quality of life I want to live. I want to have a nice house and like multiple cars. I want to have acreage. And I want to like live bathed in sun, or live in the woods, or whatever that might look like for you. Like, right, that's a valid reason to like not move to New York City. Just like it's also a valid reason to say I'm insecure or I'm too scared. When I first, like I said, when I first moved here, I had a conversation with my Uncle Randy. And he said, I was telling him like, oh, I'm a little bit nervous to move to New York City because it's super expensive, right? Because that's what I had been downloaded to think and to like spit back to people. And he said, Jermaine, just go. Too many people here are ruled and run by their fear. So just go. There's nothing for you here. There's nothing that you want is here. And if you change your mind, you can always come back. And it was super, like, it was such a be gone. like send me on my way. I don't know, like push me out of the nest moment that I kind of needed. Profound for me in lots of ways. And he was right. I moved here and I figured it out. And it's true. It's true. You will figure out a way to make it happen if you want it to happen. And there's also nothing wrong with admitting that you just didn't want to, or that you don't want to. But going back to what my Uncle Randy said, too many people are ruled and run by their fear. And I say, after being here for 20 years, use your fear. Because if you come out of the other side, chef's kiss. So don't get mad at me. I got something to tell you. You're not special. Sorry. I know your mom told you were. I know your dad and your grandma, your meemaw told you were the bee's knees, but you're not special. I'm not special. I mean, I'm a little special, but nobody's special. And you learn that the minute you land in New York City, that there are doppelgangers about of you, of me, just running the streets. And to some extent, nobody cares about what you're wearing on the street. Nobody cares what your religion is. New York City, it's like, you celebrate Christmas? Fuck your Christmas. We're not closing down for anybody. You celebrate Kwanzaa? We ain't shutting down for Kwanzaa. You celebrate Ramadan? Nope. You celebrate Hanukkah? We're not closing out for nobody. Everybody's got their own thing going on. And you're not special. You are a poor person sitting next to a more wealthy person on the subway train. You're not special. Auditions. I was thinking about this in these kind of terms. I remember going to the first year of the New York Music Theater Festival. I remember going to their auditions, and I made an audition friend. And we had decided that we were going to go to lunch. It was this younger white girl. That sounds creepy, but you know what I mean. We were both young at the time. Is the point. We were both young. She was tiny. So anyway, so we decided that we're going to go across the street and eat at Wendy's. And she just looked at me and she goes, you're so lucky. And I was like, me? Why am I lucky? And she goes, we're going to go back to that audition and there's going to be 300 other girls that look just like me. And we're going to go back and there's going to be 11 guys that look like you. You just don't have to, fight to be special amongst the other special young white girls. And I had never thought about it in those terms. And then cut to 5 years later, or I don't know how many years later, 8 years later, I make final callbacks for the original Broadway cast of Aladdin. And I am just they only have a handful of people to pick from. This is doable for me. And then marches all these fat black men. And I'm where the fuck did they find these Negroes? No, this is my gig. What, right? And so it was just a confirmation that I'm not special. They will always find a stunt to Jermaine. They will. They will always find one, and there's nothing wrong with that. But New York City will humble you quickly and let you know, you ain't shit. Just remember that. There's another one of you over there that we can just pull from. Just pluck. We'll find you. What I'm about to mention is not necessarily a New York thing, and I don't actually think a lot of the things that I've mentioned previously are necessarily New York things. I think it's getting older and aging, right? And maturing, right? And one of the things that I've learned from getting older is not to use the fear, going back to what I was saying before, to use the fear and not be afraid to express and communicate your worth, your boundaries. There is no white knight. There is no knight in shining armor. You have to save yourself. You have to make sure that you are taken care of. And your job, or maybe even your friendships, or maybe even your relationships, are not, no one's just gonna volunteer that to you, right? No one's just gonna be like, here you go, here's a new job title, and here's a lot more money. More times than not, it happens sometimes, more times than not, it's not just gonna like happen, right? And so you have to not be afraid to go out there and say, this is what I need, this is what I want, how do we make that happen? I think about when I was ready to join the Actors Union, and I didn't have an agent, and this theater company had offered me a job. And I said, yeah, I'd love to come do that job. The only way I can come and do that, though, is if you are prepared to offer me a union contract so that I can join the union. And they said, yeah, we can do that. We'll do that for you. And had I not set that parameter for myself, who knows where the hell I'd be? You know what I mean? I think about my mother telling me this story, and I guess since I've been doing this from a young age, I guess, preschool or daycare. It was like a daycare. And this woman was taking care of me and some of my cousins and some other kids of the neighborhood. And she kicked me out of the daycare. And my mother's like, what's going on? She's like, oh, Jermaine, he has to go. He's throwing me off schedule. And I was throwing her off schedule. My mother's like, well, what's going on? And apparently what I was doing was like, I guess leading a mutiny of like, either I was like talking too much during nap time, and like the kids weren't taking naps, so then they were riled up and running around on like fun dip. Or I was leading a mutiny and being like, we don't need naps, say no to naps. Was being a little baby lives matter, I guess. And so I got kicked out. And I realize now, it makes so much sense now that every job I've ever had, almost every job I've ever had, the manager at some point has had to sit me down and be like, you have great ideas. But can you just keep those to yourself? Like, or you can come and tell me, but don't tell the other employees because you're getting them kind of worked up and like, we can't have change. And so I guess what I'm getting at is like, don't be afraid to like demand or want that change, or ask for that change. You know what I mean? Make that change. Sorry. Because you have to know your worth. You have to not discount and discredit yourself. You have to enter this world and think that you're the best thing since sliced bread. Don't act like you're the best thing since sliced bread, but think that you're the best thing since sliced bread, because if you don't think you're worth it, they're not gonna think you're worth it. If you don't even wanna be in a room by yourself with yourself, they're not gonna wanna be in a room with you, right? Make them want to offer you a new position. Make them want to give you a raise. I had a temp agency that I worked with once, and they were like, okay, this is the amount of money that we're gonna give you. And I said, no, you're gonna give me more money than that. And they're like, oh, well, that's really at the high end of our range. And I go, no, if you want me to take this job, you're gonna give me more money. I'm gonna tell you why. I got you this job. You didn't get me this job. My reputation got me this job. They requested me. And so I need more money than what you're offering me. And I got it, you know? And not being afraid to like walk away from things. I don't know, just don't discount and discredit yourself and your worth. And learn how to love yourself and trust your decisions, because it'll take you so far and it's so fulfilling when you win. They say, if you can make it here, you can make it anywhere. And I believe that that's true, except for me and for my boundaries and my parameters. I'm going to require paved roads, Wi-Fi, indoor plumbing, tortilla chips, salsa, potato chips, things like that, just to make me feel at ease. But beyond that, I'm pretty sure I can make it anywhere. Other than Missouri, the only other place I've lived is New York City. The only other place I've called home is New York City. And just like my mother gave me my heart, my grandmother gave me my strength. And just like Missouri gave me my spirit, New York City gave me my grit. And what I know is if you can make it through this city that could be quick to chew you up and spit you out, if you can make it through and last and survive, You will grow with a stiffer backbone and walk straighter than you ever have, with a backbone made of the same steel of the Empire State Building. I went from being a young boy in New York City to being a rough draft of a man, to being a version 1 of a man. And now I'm on version 2, and I don't know what the final draft will look like, but that is all due to what I've learned since moving and living and thriving in New York City. I want to thank every single person that I've come in contact with, every single colleague, collaborator, who else? Friend, obviously, roommate. And I had some bad ones. I'm gonna even thank the bad ones because I learned so much from you, so much. So thank you for that. And then to New York City, the love of my life. I sound like Carrie Bradshaw. But to New York City, thank you for, I want to thank her for her honesty, her acceptance, and for every single lesson she taught me. And it might be weird for you to hear this as I close this video out. I don't know if New York City will be my forever home. And I know that's weird to hear after I just told you how much I love New York City and how much it helped me grow. But I don't know. I don't know if she's my forever home. I'm thinking about what it looks like to create a new narrative for myself and what that looks like and where would I even go? Because I don't even know what Jermaine in Pacoima looks like or Jermaine in Tuscaloosa. I have no idea what that looks like, but I'm thinking about it. But what I do know is that New York City, she keeps growing, she keeps progressing. And if I decide to leave her, she will always be here for me to return to. And that's a good thing to know.